millions of visitors to our shores.
News. The pictures from a TV camera do more than just document our lives. They are a keepsake of our past. For 50 years, KSTP has been broadcasting these images, making you an eyewitness to history. This year marks Channel 5's golden anniversary. In celebration, we're going to relive some golden moments and see them today as we saw them for the first time. This is one of the first television cameras in existence. When KSTP purchased this camera, it was the beginning of many firsts to be claimed, and it all began on April 27, 1948.
Ladies and gentlemen of Minneapolis and St. Paul, it is my very great pleasure on behalf of the National Broadcasting Company to welcome you on this occasion of the opening of television in your cities.
This simple welcome was the start of an unprecedented adventure. KSTP was the first station in the upper Midwest to broadcast television. With no local examples to follow, the Channel 5 pioneers were creating this new medium from scratch.
When you talked about television, nobody knew what you were talking about.
There was so many things to learn at that time to get the television you have today.
The engineers especially were inventing as they went along. They were so ingenious. A lot of equipment hadn't been invented yet, but they would devise equipment to suit our needs.
The program started on a daily basis on the 27th of April in 1948 when we did the Millers and Louisville baseball game.
At 3 o'clock that Tuesday afternoon, the Minneapolis Millers played in a minor league game from the old Nicollet Park. This was the first television event ever seen in the Twin Cities. Jack Horner not only announced that game, he became a part of broadcast history.
I was the first one to do a television program in Minnesota. We had a pretty good idea what should be done. I knew that you shouldn't talk a lot, that the people were going to be able to see what was happening on the field, and all I had to do was just identify the people and make some comments on things that were happening.
The game was broadcast with 3 cameras, 2 of them with operators. And since there were no zoom lenses in those days, the camera operators had to rotate between fixed lenses for their close-up, medium, and wide shots.
They spent more time watching the cameraman than they did the baseball game. I think sometimes they didn't even know who was up the bat.
The third camera at the ball game was an unattended camera. A hole was cut in the front of the grandstand right behind home plate, and a preset camera was put back.
Welcome back to KSTP's Golden Anniversary Celebration. This studio we're in right now has been the home to many landmark shows broadcast on Channel 5. Local programming began 50 years ago with the premiere of the Twin Cities' first regularly scheduled TV show. It was Sunset Valley Barn Dance, hosted by David Stone.
Down at the old barn dance, down at the old barn dance. Drinking apple cider and jumping up and down at the old barn dance.
Well, my father was a legend with the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee. My father left Grand Ole Opry, moved up here, and started the Sunset Valley Barn Dance.
Well, how do you do, neighbors, and welcome to another Saturday night Sunset Valley Barn Dance time, brought to you on good old Channel 5.
My dad was cut out to entertain the people, and he did a marvelous job of it.
And all the boys and girls ready with all that favorite Saturday night music.
Every Monday night, there was an audience, and there was standing room only. I believe that we had one of the finest shows that has ever been on the air.
This country music variety show was a Saturday night tradition for 11 years. It was the first of many shows that were locally produced.
Everything was done here in the studio. We were doing maybe 8-10 live shows a day.
Jimmy Valentine was another early star in the pioneering days of television. His fans remember him best for Jimmy's Junior Jamboree.
Show was a half hour, and if it was necessary to have an audience, we had one.
Jimmy Junior Jamboree was a 5-day-a-week program, and he'd have different things throughout the week. He had a pet parade, he had a spelling bee, science is no mystery, And then just some interviews with some kids and the hobbies and the things that they did.
For 6 years, children tuned in each weeknight at 5 p.m. for a variety of fun and games. Jimmy Valentine set the standard for children's programming at KSTP. And throughout the 50s and 60s, show host Darrell Law became a TV favorite of Twin Cities children.
Let's meet that crazy clown, T.M. Setters on Circus Sideshow! I'm over here, boys and girls. Over here in the barber shop. Hi. How are you, for goodness sake?
I had a morning show. A morning was the clown show. And then I had another show in the afternoon.
Well, now, kids, it's just about that time again, and we're pulling into Cartoon Island, where Captain Darl should be waiting to meet you.
The kids didn't know I was the same person.
Hi there, mates. Welcome to Cartoon Island. Captain Darl here.
We felt that we were here to entertain.
In the 1950s, the Twin Cities love affair with television grew. Channel 5 premiered more and more local shows to complement the network programs.
People were so excited about television. I hate to admit it, but I think the first show I ever did was How to Iron a Shirt.
For the first 30 years, KSTP was an NBC affiliate. Occasionally, the network and KSTP would produce shows together. The first special aired in 1956.
I'm very pleased to be able to announce that on January 29th at 3 o'clock from 3 to 4:30, Wide World is going to originate from the St. Paul Winter Carnival.
Wide World was probably one of the biggest that was ever attempted by Channel 5. And it entailed being in 4 locations in the Twin Cities and 1 in Bimini. And then we had to coordinate the live material coming out of NBC.
I think we had about 16 or 17 cameras throughout the city.
An amazing achievement considering the station was less than 10 years old. Television had always brought the entire nation to our living rooms, but now it brought the Twin Cities to the entire nation.
You live from St. Paul, Minnesota, the Dinah Shore Show. And here she is now, from the St. Paul Auditorium, the home of the Winter Carnival, where the temperature has been 15 below zero, Miss Dinah Shore.
Oh, we've been having the most wonderful time here in St. Paul. The very fine gentlemen at KSTP-TV who are helping us get the show to you now have been so cooperative, but the people here in St. Paul completely belie the cold weather. They're the warmest hearted, most wonderful people we've run up against. The Winter Carnival is something wonderful to see.
1957 brought the Dinah Shore Show to the Twin Cities, and later that year, Truth or Consequences originated here as part of the Aquatennial celebration. These shows presented new challenges for Channel 5.
A typical broadcast for us in the remote was Winter Carnival, 30 below. Summertime Aquatennial in Minneapolis, 110 degrees above zero. So in the summertime, you'd pack dry ice on the cameras to make them work. In the wintertime, we would have to go out and buy electric heating pads to wrap around them.
The Channel 5 engineers were certainly creative with mastering technical problems and getting TV to us. But now a stunning new technology would change the way we would watch television forever.
Color. It makes the difference. It's the most exciting thing that has happened since man discovered he could send a picture with sound through the air.
KSTP was the first station in town to broadcast color.
December the 10th, 1953, the Dragnet Christmas show was the first color transmitted in the Twin Cities.
A few weeks later, New Year's Day, 1954, the Rose Bowl Parade was presented in vivid color. But the complete transition from black and white to color would take years.
NBC and KSTP supported color for over 10 years before the other network stations joined in.
Color was so impressive that everything was converted absolutely as quickly as could be done.
By 1961, the conversion was complete. Programs were broadcast in color.
I can only say what I see.
As television became more sophisticated, so did the public's expectations. Suddenly, the camera was able to take viewers where they had never gone before.
This is what the diver experiences as he plies the tea-colored water in quest of artifacts from the past.
KSTP and the Minnesota Historical Society joined forces and set out to plunge into the past. Diving into the boundary waters, artifacts were discovered that had been left centuries ago by French voyagers.
People had been canoeing over this stuff for 150, 200 years and didn't know that 8 feet below them, this piece of history was sitting there.
Historical events were continuously captured on television. Most were man-made, like Plunge into the Past, and others were, well, kind of station-made.
3, 2, 1.
The Flight of Reindeer 8 was a television program that we did documentary style about the liftoff of Santa Claus from the North Pole. It was how we could make the Santa Claus story alive and be current.
There he goes.
These specials were fun to watch, but it was the daily local programs that generated strong viewer loyalty.
Yes, it's Tiling for Dollars, a treasure chest of fun, prizes, and exciting entertainment. Now here's your host, Jim Hutton.
And thank you very much, and once again, welcome to our Dialing for Dollars show. We'll be making 5 calls today, but first we'll have our joke of the day. Don't you think? I think we should have our joke of the day first.
Jim Hutton was a household name in the 60s.
Really?
He hosted various shows, including Treasure Chest, Bowling for Dollars, and Night Out at Diamond Jim's.
Right this way. We have a place reserved for you at Jim Hutton's table.
Thank you all very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
He had a creative mind, and he had the ability to endear himself to the people that he talked to.
Would you welcome, please, Mr. Edgar Bergen?
Jim Hutton often shared the spotlight with a co-host, the popular Jane Johnston.
Join us for a little bit. Here it is.
Jim and Jane Johnson, they had the shows, a couple different shows. Jim was liked by everybody, and Jane was a very pretty woman. And they had a good show, and they worked well together.
Jim and Jane remained a team until he left in 1965. But of all the daytime shows on Channel 5, there is one that will always be linked with the Twin Cities.
From the Twin Cities, it's Good Company. And now, your hosts, the husband and wife team, Steve and Sharon.
From its debut in 1982, no other local show in the entire country had a run quite like Good Company.
The amount of resources put into the project was enormous. It was the biggest local show in the country.
I think each person was uniquely talented and able to show that talent on that show for a number of years. And that made you want to watch.
You know, it was a mission to really do something that people could be proud of, like we were part of something big, this community, and we wanted to give people what they deserved.
For 12 years, people couldn't get enough of Steve and Sharon. Viewers actually felt they were a part of their wedding and shared in the birth of their son, David.
Well, what's going on?
Hi. Well, we've had a good morning and a fussy morning.
Yeah?
Yeah, but we're all settled down now. I got a bundle of baby here. Can you see him?
Yeah, he's looking cute.
We witnessed many celebrations on Good Company, both personal and public. But in the summer of 1994, we had to say a tearful goodbye to Steve and Sharon.
And we want to thank you, our viewer, for supporting us the way you have. We love the Twin Cities, you love the Twin Cities, and you have given us the opportunity to do this. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride.
The best years of our lives, thanks. And thanks to
Steve and Sharon are still living in the Twin Cities and run a successful television production company. Next, we'll document the rise and success of local news. Made its debut, it also set the standard for local news. The original newscast was 10 minutes long and looked like a movie newsreel, but soon the KSTP signature of 3 Morse code beeps signaled the birth of a real local newscast.
These and many stories as reported by the Northwest First newscaster Bill Ingram.
He was the TV personality of the upper Midwest. There was no equal at that time. And he was my mentor, as you will, because I came in and I was always looking up to Bill. Bill was the first.
Because you are very important, and that's it.
Bill Ingram's signature sign-off wink endeared him to viewers. He was joined by sportscaster Jack Horner and weathercaster P.J. Hofstrom, becoming the first news team assembled in the upper Midwest. In fact, KSTP was the first station in the entire country to present the 10 p.m. news every night of the week.
We were the pathfinder and mean, lean and mean, not ugly but mean, and we went after the stories.
Getting the film on the air before the next day was terribly important to us. And when we had a company airplane, we could fly places. Sometimes we didn't have time to land at the airport and drive it in here. So we would fly over the nearest place, which was the fairgrounds around here. We'd bring our airplane down low, and we'd tie a handkerchief through it on the can or put it in a gunny sack or something and throw it out the window, and somebody would catch it and bring it over here so we could develop it and get it on the air.
People began to realize the importance of local news. There were so many stories to be told that in 1950, another daily newscast was added at 6 p.m. The Channel 5 news team, led by anchors Bill Ingram, John McDougall, and Bob Ryan, also began reporting investigative stories.
The first major investigative story that was precipitated by any television station. We were the first, again, KSTP pioneered an investigation of the St. Cloud Reformatory. There were abhorrent conditions. And what KSTP did in those that first major investigative story of ours was to clean up the whole situation at St. Cloud.
The groundbreaking reports did more than just present problems. They forced solutions as well.
This was Standing Rock, the community of Cannonball, North Dakota, on the 1st of December, 1958. An early blizzard followed by miserably cold weather, widespread hunger, and the government's dilatory tactics in paying the tribe for 55,000 acres of land that was to be flooded by the waters of a new dam had conspired to all but crush the people's already fallen spirits.
Was able to dislodge then it was the Eisenhower administration, both the Bureau of Indian Affairs and Congress, freed up $12 million, which had been owed the Indians for years.
The 50s were a time to show off what TV could do. Cameras were taking viewers to places never before entered.
That door, marked private. The program that takes you behind whatever door it is that has long held your curiosity. Each of us has, at some time or another, seen a door that was firmly closed to him. Each week we invite you to join us as we escort two of you through your door. What is your door marked private? Only you can tell us.
Renee's awful interested in finding out just how Santa Claus made all that candy.
Well, Renee, we'd like to show you how Santa Claus made that candy.
News stories could satisfy the whimsical and also distance us from the morbid.
One of the most shocking crimes of the century occurred right in our own backyard in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
The Ed Gein murder case was so bizarre that Alfred Hitchcock based his movie Psycho on the events that occurred in this rundown farmhouse.
What Gein did that shocked the world was to rob graves, then take the female body parts and put them on as he paraded in the moonlight. As first TV reporter on the scene, I had little hint of what I was getting into when I talked to a neighbor of Gein's.
And he had dinner with your family?
Yes.
And he was picked up at your residence?
Yes, he was.
Did he say anything at that time?
No.
This comes as a tremendous shock to your family, I take it.
Yeah.
Can you believe it, Bob?
Well, I guess I have to now.
We were the only station to get complete film coverage of the inside of the house. These films are the only documentation of Gein's chaotic existence.
Another notorious crime was committed in 1957, giving viewers an insight into the world of murder and the mob.
The victim was Tony DeVito, who threatened to turn state's evidence on Rocky Lupino, Alex D. Good, and slayer Sam Simmon. The four had robbed a safe in North Carolina, and DeVito was about to snitch on them at their trial.
But he was killed before he had the opportunity.
You get a fair shake?
You get a fair shake, Rocky?
Alex DeGood eventually turned on the others in exchange for a shorter sentence.
And after his release, we met him at the prison gate, spirited him to Wisconsin. It was there that he admitted to us the details of the crime.
You were quoted as saying that Tony took it like a little man. Why don't you give us that story, the ride?
Well, he took it a lot better than I would take it, because you'd have to fight me every inch into that hole. The kid prayed and he Hail Mary and he went on. I mean, he never did make no effort to fight or anything.
Well, how do you feel about knocking him off? Is that another thing or what? Just another job?
No, it ain't easy to kill a person, I don't guess. But it had to be done, I guess.
The late 50s were a time of unthinkable crimes in the Twin Cities, many of which still hold the public's fascination today.
Another notorious murder for hire was the 1963 slaying of St. Paul housewife Carol Thompson. Her husband, prominent attorney T. Eugene Thompson, was later convicted as a co-conspirator in the case.
The only comment, Mrs. Thompson? Don't block them there. Any comment, Gene?
Thompson's trial was marked by media frenzy, with standing room only crowds waiting for a seat outside the Ramsey County courtroom. But we followed it all the way inside and almost to the cell block of Stillwater State Prison.
By now, viewers had high expectations of local coverage, but in the 1960s, we plunged into turbulent times. TV news raced to keep up.
It's difficult, if indeed not impossible, to figure out the teenage mind.
Reliable system for communicating with outer space.
City Council thought it was a good idea.
We do believe that this day will go down in history as the beginning of a new era.
A positive step forward on the question of racial justice.
To leave Washington Avenue at this time.
The Twin Cities incidents were really reflective of what was happening nationally as far as civil unrest is concerned. It was a one-night event, all of this wild melee that was led up to by a series of minor skirmishes between the police and the residents of the area. Well, it was by definitely the worst riot we'd ever seen.
The civil rights movement was erupting all around us, and the events here generated national interest.
Another strong presence in the Minnesota civil rights movement was Roy Wilkins.
The Negro is trying to get his citizenship rights. He can't submit that to a popularity referendum.
Roy, of course, eventually became president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
The average white person is woefully ignorant of the contributions which the Negro has made to this country.
Because of Roy Wilkins being from St. Paul, he often came to town. Even Dr. Martin Luther King came here to address a group of students from the University of Minnesota on the problems of civil unrest around the country.
So this is where we are today, moving to a new phase of the struggle.
But tensions would continue and more unrest would boil over into our streets. Students were constantly protesting the Vietnam War. Channel 5 didn't just cover the story from the campus, but from the war zone as well.
Bob Ryan, Skip Nelson, KSTP News, reporting from a minesweeper, Na Bay, South Vietnam.
And Skip Nelson and I covered the war in Vietnam 3 different years. We were the first to go out there.
This big global affair now became a local affair for us.
Although national turmoil seemed to dominate the news, the stories close to home captured our attention as well.
I intend to run my campaign solely and singularly by myself for my own candidacy.
The focus of the reserve mining case was the company's massive discharge of taconite tailings into Lake Superior from its Silver Bay plant.
A $1 million ransom was paid for the release of Virginia Piper, and the kidnapping remains the largest of its kind, still not solved by the FBI.
20 sticks of dynamite exploded at the old federal building in St. Paul. Authorities linked the explosion to the anti-war movement.
With events swirling around us and the 70s racing toward a close, one somber announcement forced us to pause.
Senator Humphrey passed away quietly in his sleep at 9:25 p.m.
in the Northland?
In this market to do the live shots, mini cams. We really had the technology to be able to go out into the field to where news was happening.
The Pope's 1979 visit to Iowa was a landmark event, and his blessing was needed especially after the social upheaval of the preceding years. Our attention stayed closer to home as we entered the 80s, and there were plenty of stories to keep us here.
Part of the northern wall of the Donaldson's building collapsed. There were reports of an explosion. By 5:45, smoke and ashes were soaring hundreds of feet into the air. The flames lit up the nighttime sky, and the fire could be seen for miles.
The night that the Northwest Bank building burned down, it was Thanksgiving night. Stan Turner and I were working together, and the building burned to the ground.
These things are tragic. As I recall, nobody got killed, but it gives you a fine appreciation for the risks that our public servants take.
The remains of the building had to be destroyed. KSTP recorded the demolition with 5 cameras, including one actually inside the building.
And it really used pictures to tell the story.
The city was undergoing urban renewal, but this was urban renewal in an evening. It literally changed the face of downtown Minneapolis.
Our cities began to take on a new look in the 80s, and so did a lot of its residents. We had officially entered the me decade.
There was an interesting dichotomy between kind of a me generation, very materialistic in the 1980s, and this was juxtaposed against this terrible crisis on the farms.
The debt owed by Minnesota farmers now stands at $12 billion, and for some, their debt is becoming unmanageable.
We feel we have to make a stand or we won't be anybody left.
This is an ongoing story, and it doesn't appear to be headed for any kind of a happy ending. The farm crisis is a crisis in every sense of that much overused word.
Conflict and other crises permeated much of the 80s for individuals and their communities.
Robert and Lois Benz may be the first of 25 defendants to go to trial in the Jordan sex ring case. But at times in the past month, it has been difficult to tell for sure just who is on trial here, the Benzes or prosecutor Kathleen Morris.
We were absolutely shocked at the allegations that were coming forward. This was news that you didn't have to sensationalize. The sensation was built in.
It almost had the elements of a Salem witch hunt.
I'm not surprised about anything in this case.
In the end, only one defendant was found guilty. Charges against the other 23 were eventually dropped. During the 80s, Channel 5 continued its legacy of broadcast first, looking to the skies as a way to deliver local news.
Looking good.
This 2.4-meter satellite uplink dish being used tonight for the first time on an American news program is an entirely portable unit that makes it possible to broadcast live from any location in the United States.
You could have instant access to your news sources, and that changed everything.
Satellite news gathering arrived just in time to chart one Minnesotan's path to power.
My fellow Americans, I want to be President of the United States. Thank you.
News unfolded quickly, and Channel 5 brought you each unforgettable moment. The 80s were clearly a time to showcase Minnesota's unprecedented spirit of adventure. We reached for the stars with Minnesota's first astronaut in space, George Pinky Nelson.
I don't see anything that's going to stop us.
And we strove for the pole with the Steger expedition.
It was just something you had to do.
What Minnesotan Paul Erickson had to do in 1980 was cross the 450-mile Greenland ice cap on foot.
This is it. There's no turning back.
Oh, right ahead. Is that a blue?
Yes!
There it is.
Ahoy, the Yankee girl!
We greeted Jerry Speece when he completed his lonely voyage across the Atlantic Ocean in a 10-foot sailboat. Paul Shirky led the American team that joined the Soviets to cross the Bering Strait, a 1,200-mile trek. It was more than just an extraordinary challenge. It actually helped advance the first thaw of East-West relations.
The experience has changed my life forever.
Minnesotans are compelled to explore new horizons. There seems to be nowhere on Earth, or even out of it, that is too far or too hard to reach.
I said I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Television makes us feel a part of the story in good times and bad.
While the crowd here was busy with police and arrests, replacement workers were entering another gate.
The Hormel strike down in Austin in 1986 was a labor management story that had a lot of passion in it.
It was a classic union story where the company dug its heels in, the union dug its heels in, and neither side was budging.
Few events in our state's history have matched the bitterness during the strike at Hormel. The dispute was finally settled, but left deep emotional scars within the community. While labor issues tore a community apart, tragedy brought others together.
Listen. Can you hear the sound?
It's been 9 years since Jacob's abduction, 9 heart-wrenching years for the Wetterling family.
I'd go sit on the couch and just watch the driveway. And part of me expects somebody to drop him off as part of a carpool and he'll come running up the driveway. And then part of me just questions, you know, where is he? Where are you, Jacob?
To this day, Patty Wetterling and her husband and the whole family are dedicated not only to trying to find their son. They have not given up hope, but helping countless families deal with their tragedy. I think television, again, as it does with so many stories, made this a living room story, a real personal family story for Minnesotans. It really was part of their lives.
Another local tragedy remains indelibly etched in our memories as well.
These men respected you enough to spend their days and their nights protecting what is good about this place.
To worldwide events, Channel 5 has been your window to the world, covering events like no one else.
Welcome, Mr. President.
And now Eyewitness News is ready to document what the next year and the next millennium will bring.
Now it's 1998, and the American dream lives on in Minnesota as we shock the world.
50 years of great television moments. Of all the stories Channel 5 has covered in these past 5 decades, some of the most memorable reflect Mother Nature herself.
We're going to try to take cover up here. This thing is going to come right at us. Hang on, you guys. Hang on, you guys.
Just a black whirling cloud low to the ground.
It's a day like any other day, only it happened to be 20 inches of snow.
How many cars involved?
I could only guess about 1,200 involved, about 250 with severe damage.
1,200 cars?
Involved, yes.
This is very wild for a Sunday morning. A flood and a snowstorm is unreal.
Reporting the weather is as much a part of Channel 5's legacy as snow is to Minnesota. We were there in 1948 when rural families were rescued from paralyzing blizzards. We assisted Operation Haylift and secured the survival of many livestock. And almost 50 years later, we covered a similar heartbreaking story.
Come on here.
You've learned to depend on Channel 5 for weather warnings.
Here's a bulletin from the KSTP newsroom. The U.S. Weather Bureau in the Twin Cities reports that tornado funnels have been sighted western.
Between 6 and 20 separate funnels reportedly touched down that night of May 6, 1965. 15 were killed, hundreds of buildings destroyed, and every Minnesotan knew the meaning of the word twister.
The 60s were not just a turbulent time politically, but weather-wise as well.
The little farm community of Tracy, Minnesota is digging through the rubble today, attempting to piece together memories of what has been for it the worst Flag Day in its history. 13 persons are dead in the wake of a tornado that's...
We saw history repeated in 1981.
When the tornadoes moved further in a northeasterly direction, they caused massive destruction in Roseville.
Today, meteorologists rely on powerful computers to warn us of the inevitable.
It's still about 2 miles, at least 2 miles away from us toward the northwest, and they've warned at least 3 counties here.
Decade after decade, Minnesotans have struggled back after weathering Mother Nature's fury. And recently, a whole new generation of Minnesotans were put to the test.
Unbelievable. I'm totally lost. Everything's gone. I don't know what I'm going to do, or I can't even sleep.
What do you say? That you're lucky that you're alive?
The science of meteorology has evolved through the years. In fact, it has changed as often as, well, the weather. P.J. Hofstrom was the first on-air weather forecaster in the Twin Cities. Yet he was also a newspaper columnist and cartoonist. P.J. would combine his art with his forecasts. Early weather segments used a simple presentation, just a magic marker and a map.
With Johnny Morris in the weather room.
Today was mostly cloudy and very windy this morning. However, things have tapered off considerably since then.
Decades ago, forecasters didn't have as much information to work with. Often they would rely on their own interpretation.
Roses are red, violets are violet. We're getting snow tonight, a whole great big pile of it.
When I began there in 1970, there was one satellite picture available each day. And that came directly here and had to be pieced together. But that was all.
We'll figure it all out soon. I saw the weathercasts as informational. As long as I got the information out, and hopefully in an entertaining manner, because weather can be a very dull subject. I had this one thing that I did all the time was peek around at the camera. They called me the Peekaboo Weatherman.
The actual wall cloud, those rotating...
Many weather reporting milestones were claimed by Channel 5. KSTP was one of the first stations in the country to have its own weather radar system on site and employed the first qualified on-air meteorologist in the Twin Cities.
Not terribly important today, except it's a contrast to what's going on.
Through the years, we have been your eyewitness to every type of weather imaginable. Although weather forecasting has dramatically improved, one element will never change, and that is the determination of Minnesotans to bond together, rebuild together, and recover together.
What makes a community a place to live is not the buildings or anything else in that community. It is the people, the spirit, and the faith that are in those people.
I'm still alive.
Television in the Twin Cities began with a baseball game, and ever since, sports and TV have been a winning team.
When it was over, the Lakers were victorious, 4 games out of 7.
As the game ended, Minnesota 26, Wisconsin 7.
For 50 years, we've been your eyewitness to these golden moments and captured each celebration.
The Western Conference Championship.
We've seen our sports figures transform into American heroes.
I try to be the best that I can be.
Molitor has his 3,000th hit.
If my father was here, he'd stand up and he'd say, "The kid made it. He finally made it."
These legends have put Minnesota into the national spotlight. And now we await the next generation to emerge.
Inside Garnett. Sprint out by Johnson, deep down the left sideline for Moss. He juggles, he's got it, touchdown!
Perhaps our enthusiasm for sports boils over in the hockey rink. But no event has captured the Minnesota hockey tradition quite like the state high school hockey tournament.
And he should. He
When
KSTP Channel 5 got the rights to the state high school hockey tournament. And we decided as a station that we were going to really do a number on this.
A whack rub is scored!
I was able to put together a total of 11 or 12 camera coverage, even shooting straight down on the ice. Overhead shots and things like that you couldn't have done years before because of the bulkiness of the cameras. I'm proud of that to this day.
Generation after generation, we cheered our sports heroes in victory and defeat and followed them from home to home. In 1955, a new ballpark was erected in Bloomington. Less than 25 years later, the wrecking ball tore down not only the old Met, but Memorial Stadium and the Met Center as well. And we moved inside to a downtown location with a roof. The Metrodome thrived as the home of the Twins, Vikings, Gophers, and some national championships. Today, the Target Center houses the Timberwolves. And St. Paul's River Center awaits the arrival of our new hockey team, the Minnesota Wild. The palaces they play in rise and fall, but our sports legends will continue to grow and will forever celebrate their victories.
Once more, national champions who strike free! The Twins are on the pullet!
Hattie Bird, queen of American golfers.
Led by center John Mayasich.
The killer unloads on this one, and he knows it's gone. Bob Allison makes a miraculous catch.
He drops back to pass on 1st and 10. Down the middle it goes! Down the right side, and it is fought for, and it's touchdown!
To Guyette, for the first time ever, the Minnesota Twins are the world champions.
Television has drastically changed since its premiere. Satellite delivery is as commonplace today as this camera was in the 50s. KSTP has pushed the limits of technology from the start. The television business continues to evolve, but one thing will never change, and that is the dedication and commitment of KSTP to bring you the best in news coverage and local programming. I'm Colleen Needles. Thanks for watching 50 years of Channel 5's Golden Moments.
I was wowed by the whole thing of television. There was a sense that we were on the edge of something, that we were part of something that was very important. We did something worthwhile here.
It was a very exciting time in the beginning. Just the phenomenon of television was exciting. I'm proud of the fact that we excelled at what we did.
It was, to me, magical. I don't think anybody had any idea what was going to happen with television, how it was going to expand, what a great influence it was going to be in our lives.
No one knew how fast it would grow or where it would grow.
Just seems like yesterday, though.
We were breaking ground all the time. It wasn't done before, right? We were making, we were creating. It was great.
People were so excited about television.
You take pride in being a broadcaster at this station.
Television has the capacity, as Ed Murrow knew a long time ago, to be more than lights and wires in a box. It can be a great instrument for educating people.
And the viewers in those Twin Cities look to KSTP for their news, weather, and sports as the legacy continues today. And you can bet KSTP will be on the cutting edge, leading the way for the next 50 years as we head into the 21st century. So indeed, KSTP Channel 5 is your eyewitness yesterday, today, and tomorrow.